recording. We've recently written a long-ass article about the Czech Digital Nomad Visa. And it's like a very long and it includes all the information. And I wanted to take you through that as well in this video. So let's jump right into it. Who can apply for the Czech Digital Nomad Visa? Because that's an important question, because it does not apply to all the nationalities in the world, but only to like 11 or something. I'll tell you all. So only the nationalities in the list can apply. Australia, Brazil, Canada, India, Israel, Japan, Mexico, New Zealand, South Korea, Taiwan, United Kingdom, and United States of America. And I'm moving this. And in the article, we've also written like detailed specifics of each nationality, not all of them yet, but at least India, that's very different, way more complicated than any other nationality. And then on the other hand, United States, Americans have the easiest process of all the nationalities. So we've described those in details as well, what are the specific of different nationalities. So I've already put a link to that article to the description of the video. So if you want to know more or you want to read it calmly, then go there and you can read everything. Now, for what specializations is the Digital Nomad Visa meant in the Czech Republic? That's also very important because there are only two specializations, let's say, that apply to the Czech Digital Nomad program. And one is IT specialists and the second one is marketing specialists. So similarly to the nationalities, if you're not in the list, if your nationality is not in the list of allowed nationalities, you cannot apply. And the same goes for the business you run. So if you're in IT or marketing, you can apply, but if you do anything else, then not really. And it's kind of also specific for the IT and marketing positions, because I'm not sure if I'll get back to it. So I'll mention it now, and then in the worst case, I'll repeat myself. But ideally, you should have just one big employer or one big client for the Digital Nomad program. If you work in marketing, but let's say you have your own website and you have like 10 different clients every month, very likely that's not gonna work out for the program, because there are some documents you need to provide, and that would be very difficult if your business does not have one big client or you're not employed in one big company. The next thing is the minimum income requirement, because one of the documents you need to prove is that you will be earning enough money on monthly basis during your whole stay in the Czech Republic. And the minimum income requirement is calculated as 1.5 of Czech national average salary for that particular year. Usually this national average salary is announced somewhere in the beginning of the year, but it's always valid from the 1st of May until the 30th of April next year. So now the minimum income requirement is valid from the 1st of May 2025 until 30th of April 2026. And after that, from 1st May 2026, it will be changed, very likely increased for the next year. As of now, let me see the numbers so I tell you the exact number, because even a crown makes a difference, because if you need to be meeting this requirement and you only have like 1 crown less, you're not meeting the requirement. So I need to give you the exact numbers. So the Czech official average salary, monthly salary is 46,165 crowns a month. So 1.5 of that is 69,248 crowns a month. So let's say 70,000 crowns is the required income for the Digital Nomad Visa in the Czech Republic. Next, let's go to the documents you need. I'll take you through that briefly, because if I went into details for everything, that would be a very long video. But you can always refer to the article I've linked in the description, where we describe everything in details. So documents, application form, it also kind of depends because there are two versions of the digital nomad visa. One is for freelancers and one is for employees. And obviously the set of documents you need to provide is a bit different for each of those. So briefly, I'll tell you both and I will highlight the differences. So let's start with the business version of it, because that's, or the freelance version of it, because that's the more complicated one. So application form, passport, 2 passport size photo, proof of accommodation in the Czech Republic for a year in advance, proof of funds equivalent to 160,000 crowns at this point. You need to get a Czech trade license because you apply as a freelancer. You need to get the digital nomad registration from the Czech MIT, from the Ministry of Industry and Trade. You need to have a criminal check from the country of origin or all the countries you have lived for more than 6 months in the last 3 years. And then once you get approved, you also need to get health insurance. For the employment type of digital nomad visa, you basically need exactly the same set of documents. You just don't need the trade license, because the trade license allows you to freelance in the Czech Republic. And if you apply as an employee, you don't need to freelance, or you don't freelance, or you don't need to have the trade license. But other than that, you need to have basically all the same documents. Let's see the questions before I go to the step-by-step process how to apply. Let's see if we have any questions about this. Smret Solomon, hey. Cristiano Ronaldo, hi brother, explain clearly PCC for last 3 years. Yeah, you always need to have a criminal check from the country of origin. So if you're from India, then you need to have criminal check from India, the PCC. If you're from the US, you need to have either the FBI criminal check or an affidavit, sworn statement that you're not a criminal. And then also, if you've lived in some other countries than the country of your origin for more than 6 months in the last 3 years, you need to have a criminal check from that country as well. So let's say if you're an Indian and you live in Dubai for a year, then you need to have a criminal check from India plus from United Arab Emirates. Hopefully this made it clear. Miron, hi, do you speak English? Do you speak Russian? Da, já nemnožko gavaru по-русски. And Neon Kurupele, I have received a letter to go check my file. So that's not really connected to this topic. So let's skip it for now. Because guys, I don't do the open live streams Q&As anymore in this like public version. I still do it after every live stream I do like this, but I only do it in the members only section. So if you want to ask questions about like questions not related to the topic at hand, you can. I'll be happy to answer them. You just need to join, pay $8 a month for 8 live streams, and I'll be happy to do that. Back to the application process, step by step for the Czech Republic's digital nomad visa. First, collect all the documents. That's kind of clear. You have to have all the documents because you're submitting a visa application, so you must have everything, and everything must be perfect. Because if you're missing something or there are some mistakes, the embassy will not even accept the application. Second, apply for the digital nomad registration with the MIT, and that should be ideally your last step, because that's usually where people who try to get the visa on their own, I've seen it. It's very brave or very stupid, I don't know, but this is the most common mistake. That people apply for the digital nomad registration in the beginning or whatever because they don't know. But the problem with that is that once you get the digital nomad registration from the Czech MIT, you also kind of automatically get an appointment at the Czech embassy of your choosing. And the appointment usually happens very swiftly, so like next week. And if you applied for the digital nomad registration as one of your first steps, and you're missing half of the documents, there is almost no way you will make it in time. And that's kind of a big problem because officially in the rules of the digital nomad program, it says that you can only reschedule once, and only if you have super serious reason. And super serious reason does not really mean like, hey, I didn't know what I was doing. It's not really serious, that's stupid, kind of. Sorry for like saying it like that. But if you then reschedule and then you miss it again for maybe some serious reason that you get injured or I don't know, something like serious happens, then you will not be able to reschedule it again, and the Digital Nomad Visa door has just closed for you. So anyway, go submit your Digital Nomad application, Digital Nomad Visa application to some Czech embassy. For Indians in the list, you can only do it in India or in a country where you have been residing for more than 2 years. All the other nationalities can basically choose any Czech embassy in the world where they accept visa applications. So, for example, Americans can apply in the US. Not always advisable though, for many reasons, but they can also choose to submit the application in Dresden, in Germany, or London, or wherever basically. So it depends on your nationality, but you have to go to some Czech embassy to submit your application. Then you wait for the decision. That's actually one of the visa applications that works well. All the applications we've had were approved before 45 days. Some of them even like before the 30th day. So that's pretty swift compared to any other visa. That's a very like quick turnaround. Then once you get approved, you need to get Czech private health insurance. What kind of insurance for how long, that varies depending mainly on your nationality and the type of the digital nomad visa you applied for. So either the business visa as a freelancer or the other visa as an employee. But you need to always get some form and shape of Czech health insurance. Then you go back to the embassy where you applied for the visa and collect the visa. And then there are some steps you need to take after you come back to the Czech Republic, but then it varies. It depends on the situation, like if you've been here using your 90 days, for example, or if it will be your first entry to the Czech Republic, depends on if you're a freelancer or an employee. But just know that there are some steps that are required after you get approved, and especially for the freelance way, because then you need to activate your trade license, you need to get registered with Social Security, income tax office, potentially the healthcare system as well. So it does not really end with the approval. But when you get approved, you can actually like be a bit calmer, but there are still things you need to do. The processing time, that's not the next topic, but I've covered that basically already. Just for example, for a comparison, if you were applying for a standard business visa, the official approval time there is 90 to 120 days. For the digital nomad version of the business visa, it's only 45 days. So it's like 2 or even more times shorter approval time. So that's one of the great advantage of the business visa in the digital nomad form. And it can actually potentially work out the way that you will not need to overstay your 90 days because it will be done within the 90 days. Taxes and social security for digital nomads, that's a topic on its own. That's not the purpose of this video. I would definitely recommend speaking to a tax advisor if this is a big concern of yours, for example, because the international taxes might get complicated. And with some countries, we do have the agreement preventing double taxation. With some countries, we don't. Some nationalities have to pay the healthcare in the Czech Republic. Some don't have to or cannot even. So it very much depends, and I definitely recommend like speaking about this topic separately with a professional as well. We can definitely recommend one we work with, but I definitely recommend speaking with someone. And now I think it's the last topic. No, there are 3 more topics. Oh, that's a really long article. So the next topic is the most common reasons for rejections or complications with the digital nomad visa. Usually people work with us. because it makes most sense. If you don't know how it all works, if you're moving to the Czech Republic for the first time, maybe into Europe for the first time, Czech Republic's immigration processes are not the most straightforward ones and not the easiest ones, not the most logical ones either, because you, for example, need to have accommodation arranged for at least a year, even if you don't know if you ever get the visa approved. And in case of Indians, for example, when you cannot even come to the Czech Republic to look for a place to live. Because if you're an American, Canadian, Australian, Israeli, Korean, whatever, you can come to the Czech Republic using the 90 days and look for a real place to live, sign a lease agreement. You can do it this way. For Indians, you cannot come here without a visa at all. So you need to find a place online, which is like already very complicated. You need to sign a lease agreement for a year and then apply for a visa and hope you get approved. Maybe someday, you know? So there are many things that do not really make sense, and it's very easy to make a mistake. So I definitely recommend applying, at least submitting the first application with some professional. Ideally, us, of course, but you don't have to use us. Just make sure that you use someone who's experienced. Does not necessarily need to be a lawyer. That's not required in the Czech Republic, but it should be someone who's done these applications, who's been in the business for some time, and ideally who is not just like one person doing it on their own, because that's very risky for many reasons. And I've done other videos about that. But there are some people who try to submit the application on their own, and these are the most common reasons for their denial or complications. When they get to us later saying, hey, I tried to apply for the digital nomad visa, I was rejected, or I'm now in this situation, I need to fix something. This is usually what's the problem. Incomplete or incorrect documentation, that's pretty common. It happens a lot with the accommodation, because there are many things that can go wrong with your accommodation in the Czech Republic. A couple examples. One thing, if you don't know that your visa will be shortened based on the accommodation proof you submit. So if you, for example, rent a place for 6 months because you don't want to commit to a full year or something, then you might only get the digital nomad visa for 3 months, 4 months. Because you got it for 6 months, but then before you apply, before it gets approved, you only have like 4 months left, and you will only get the visa for the 4 months. So that's not a rejection, but instead of 1 year, you got 4 months, and that's very unnecessary, because now you need to basically immediately apply for extension. You need to get all the documentation again, like right away. So it's just very inconvenient. Another thing is that because of the rental situation in the Czech Republic, where the landlords are the kings now, and they can choose from tens and tens of people interested in whatever apartment you see online. What happens often is that, for example, people reconstruct or transform their cellars or attic spaces or offices into apartments, but they usually only do it in the physical place. So the physical place looks like a normal apartment, but on paper, it's still an office, or it's still a cellar, or it's still an attic space. And you cannot live in those for like officially. So you can get a lease agreement, you can get a proof of accommodation, everything might look fine, but then you take it to the embassy and they tell you, but this is not a flat, this is an office. You cannot live in an office. And the whole application is jeopardized. You also need to find a new place to live, which usually means giving 3 months leave-in notice, finding a new place, applying again, then you've already used your 90 days, and it just gets complicated. And it's just like 2 examples of 1 document, but you have 10 documents and way more things to, like, especially also with the criminal checks, that can get also pretty complicated. So that's one thing. Mistake. I have a notification that I should turn off my phone soon, so sorry. Mistakes, delays in preparation phase, that's kind of connected to the documents, but for example, what I was mentioning in the beginning, that people often submit the digital nomad registration application first, or somewhere in the first phases of the process, which can lead to getting an appointment at the embassy when you don't have all the documents ready, which then can lead to you not being able to submit the application at all, because as I explained, embassies do not like, but they also should not, according to the rules of the program, reschedule your appointment more than once, and only with the very serious reasons. And there are other things like that also, like especially related to the trade license way, to the business visa, because there are, for example, when you're applying for the visa, you're only getting an inactive trade license. So you cannot actually run any business until you get the visa approved. But after you get the visa approved, you have to go to the foreign police within 3 days, get a special confirmation from them, and then take it within 3 days to the trade license office. Otherwise, your trade license will not be activated. And you might also not be able to renew your visa if you don't have a trade license and you applied for a business visa. So there are many things like that which might look kind of clear on paper if you just look at the law and you say, I need a trade license, I need accommodation, I need this, I have everything. It looks simple, but there are many like small things that can make a very big difference in the application. And let's see, rejections. Yeah, then like but it usually does not happen for digital nomads. Complications with proof of funds, because usually people prove their funds in a foreign account, not in Czech one. So you also need to keep in mind that the exchange rate changes a lot, especially now with Trump doing what he's doing. The Czech crown is the strongest it's ever been almost to the dollar. So you need to take this into account, that you must have, let's say, 160,000 crowns, but that can mean $7,000 now, but it can mean $8,000 like next month. So you should not have just the exact amount. You should have more, so you have some buffer for the exchange rate. Plus, you should not be really using the money, or you should at least not drop below the required minimum, because if the ministry requests something fresher and you are already below the minimum, that can be a simple reason to deny your application. So sometimes happens. That usually happens for other visa types, but for the digital nomad visa, it can happen as well. And if you don't qualify for the digital nomad visa, what are your options? Depends on what you want to do here and depends on your nationality. Let's say if you're an Indian, you don't really have too many options because getting any visa type as an Indian is very difficult. So realistically, maybe a student visa or a blue card. Maybe if you're a non-Indian, but you still like one of the nationalities that qualifies for the digital nomad visa, but you don't particularly qualify for that because you're not in IT or marketing, or you don't have just one big client, you have multiple smaller ones. You could potentially try applying for a business visa, which is possible but very difficult if you don't have any Czech clients. Student visa is an option. Employee card would be definitely an option, especially for Americans, because Americans now have free access to the Czech labor market. Other nationalities as well, but they come first to mind. So that would be an option. You can always also bring your family members, but the closest family members, so spouses or kids. So they apply for a family reunification visa. Potentially the best option as well, if you have an EU spouse or even a partner. If you're just dating an EU citizen, you could apply for a partnership visa or for a temporary residence permit for family members of EU citizens. And that also has plenty of advantages or benefits. And that's it. If you need any help with the application, get in touch. We'll be happy to assist you. Let me see if there are any questions related to the digital nomad visa. Please, I live here for 2 years. That's not related to that. Hi Jan, I don't need the IT visa as I have PR already, but it's always interesting to learn more. My pleasure. Happy that you're coming here to learn more, even if you reached the holy grail of the Czech immigration, the PR. And Muhammad, hi, if we come on Digital Nomad Visa, can we open sole proprietorship and add trade license or deliver driver, deliver food rider? Well, that's an interesting question, because potentially, yes, you apply for the Digital Nomad Visa as a freelancer. So let's say a sole proprietorship as a self-employed person. So you can potentially add more trades as well, and you can work in different fields too, but it should definitely not change anything on you working as a digital nomad, because you always need to fulfill the purpose of your stay. And let's say if you get the visa as a digital nomad, but then you start doing something else and you maybe don't do the digital nomad work, then if the ministry finds out, they could cancel your visa, but at least they will not renew it, because if you want to stay longer than the first year, you need to submit again proofs that you are a digital nomad. You need to submit some other documents, so you might not be able to extend it. So let's say if you still are a digital nomad and then you add some trades on top of it, and you just like on the weekends you deliver Bolt or something, you can do that. But you always need to stick to the purpose of your stay, which in this case would be digital nomading. Whew, that's been a way longer video than I thought, but as I've told you, we've written a long ass article about this where we go into more details. You have the link in the description of the video. So check it out. We have also subtopics for different nationalities and family members, all that, so check it out. And now for those of you who don't know, I will be going to the joiners only section, and I will be doing live Q&As there. So if you have questions that are not related to the digital nomad visa, then you can join and catch me there. I'll be there in the next 2 minutes, and I'll be doing live Q&As there right away. So thank you very much, guys, for being here, and I will see you again Monday, Thursday, until the end of the world. See you. Good night.